There's actually two stories about some spirits I encountered in graveyards locally here in Moravia. Get on with the first story. And this one occurred with my daughter. She was with me. And my daughter's about 20. And we're cutting through some woods, up taking a shortcut to get to a park where there's some hiking trails. One, midsummer day. And we cut through there quite a few times. There's like a deer path, goes through a field, goes up a little hill, and there's an old graveyard, Dry Creek Cemetery. Graves ranging from about 1793, I think, to about 1880s, something like that. There are no roads leading to it. There's like a footpath and what used to be where they brought the hearse wagon, probably obviously horse-drawn. There's like a trail where they cut, where there must have been, God, this poor town had cholera or typhus. Had a couple of epidemics. And around about 1840, I think 1838, it come through here twice. I think it was cholera. And it pretty much cleaned this town out twice. Everybody, man, woman, and child. And they didn't understand it. They didn't know what it was. And I think it was like 1838, and it hit again around 1840s, early 1840s. And that graveyard shows it. Men and women of all ages buried up there. It's pretty much the same year. It must have been horrible. That place must have seen a lot of use every day and a lot of sorrow. So, and it's kind of interesting. There's one guy in there who says he was killed by Indians. Captain, I think it's Price. I'm not sure. I got a picture of it. I'm going to put on here. So back to the story. My daughter and I are cutting up through this shortcut, through the woods on a deer trail. And as soon as we got into this graveyard, we saw off to our left two women and a man, both of them with their backs turned, all three of them with their backs turned to us. They were gathered around the grave. They're dressed like they're from the 1850s. That's to say, the one woman, they had hoop skirts, the really wide-belled skirts that went out. Must have been a pain to get in and out of those, huh? Not that any of you would know, but all right. Try making a video, all right? I'm going to drive on with this. So there were two women in hoop skirts and one man, a tall man, and he was on top of that. He had one of those tall stovepipe hats, dressed up like Abe Lincoln's time, a black suit with, I drew a picture on the title page. One woman was in yellow, one woman had a purple dress on, and the man was all in black. And we saw them. They were off just a little ways to us, maybe 50 feet away. And I said, wow, look at that. And we both saw them. And that's strange, Didn't say anything. And we're both looking at them, kind of weirding out a little bit, but we're still walking on our way. Honestly, I thought it was people in costumes, because they look solid. This happens. I thought there were people in costumes out in the middle of the woods in this old cemetery. Who knows what, but I did not think ghost immediately. And I don't believe my daughter did either. So at any rate, the man and the woman in the purple left the grave. The woman in the yellow stayed at the grave. And the man and the woman in purple, this is my daughter and me, and this is the man and the woman. They started walking, and our paths intersected. And they walked right in front of us, this man and woman. So I got a really good look at them. I really took note of them. And by the way, I'd said hello to them quite clearly. I said, hey, how's it going? Kind of. And they were talking, but there was another weird thing. Couldn't make out a thing they were saying. It was a mumble, like a hushed mumble. Couldn't make out a single word, but could hear them quite clearly talking. And they walked right in front of me, like this close from me. And I said, how's it going? And they didn't even acknowledge me. They didn't see me. They didn't hear me. they didn't even know I was there. Neither of them looked at me or gave me even the slightest bit of notice. So, and they just crossed in front and they kept going. But let me explain what they look like, because I got a good look at them and I took note. The man, I would say he looked quite a bit like a younger Liam Neeson, the actor, the Irish actor. Guy played a lot of movies, big tall guy. He looked a lot like that. He had a brown mustache. He was a big guy, probably 6'2", medium build, and brown hair, brown mustache, no beard, whiskers. His skin was white, and the woman's skin was white. And I don't mean Caucasian white, I mean white. The palest pale I've ever seen. Even their lips were pale, which the rest of them was colored, because he had like chestnut brown hair, mustache and hair. And other than that, they looked solid. I looked at this guy. I thought that if he was wearing a costume, it was the most accurate costume I've ever seen. His shoes, he had on black leather shoes that looked like they'd been waxed. And I mean waxed. Being from an old military guy, these shoes were waxed. And they looked pretty good quality. This mustache, yeah, that's good. I'm going to get rid of these whiskers eventually. His, I already said his skin was pale. Hands, face, lips, not quite pure white, but the next thing to pure white. Whiter shade of pale. You know the song. I'm goofing off. What else? His coat. He had a black coat on. And he had lapels, black lapels, white shirt, bow tie. Old-fashioned looking bow tie, the way it was tied. Well, I can't describe it. But his lapels looked like they had fur, like they were leather. Like it was real kind of flat, like it had fur on it. I think it was beaver skin they used to use, actually. And his hat, he had a tall hat, like Abe Lincoln, all I can think, stovepipe hat. And that looked to be like the same material as the lapels on his coat. It didn't look like it was made out of felt, like a Stetson or something. It looked black like a leather, with hair, like hide. I think it was beaver skin. Actually, I looked it up. It was authentic. It wasn't leather. It had fur like beaver skin. And I looked these things up, and that's how they made those things back then. They made them out of beaver skin quite a few times. But at any rate, that's how his clothes looked. If it was a costume, it was extremely authentic in my estimate. White shirt. Liam Neeson. Real pale. The woman was they both looked like they were probably about 35, if I was to put an age on them. The woman was kind of full-figured. Not to say she was fat, but she wasn't thin either. Curvy. I guess curvy. Had that big hoop skirt. She had a purple hoop skirt dress on. And it had a nice sheen to it. A really nice sheen to the material. I don't know materials that. But it did not look cheap if it was a costume. And her hair was done up in ringlets. And her hair was like a dark, not black, but very dark brown. And very big ringlets. A lot of ringlets. Big ringlets. Like done with a big curling iron. Her skin was like the man. It was super pale. Even her lips. And they were both just looking straight ahead. And they were walking. They weren't floating. They were walking. And they went past us. And the woman in the yellow stayed at the grave, like I said. And my daughter and I kept walking. I'm like, yeesh. We looked at each other. Woo. We went about another 5 seconds later walking. And I stopped and turned back. And she did too. They were all gone. The woman in the yellow, the woman in the purple, the man in the black was gone. Gone. And then off in the wood line, I could swear I saw 2 balls of light going into the woods like that, moving around each other, and just went off. And that's that. And well, that's the first encounter. And couldn't tell you what. I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. Well, I knew they were spirits when I turned around and they were gone. My daughter did too, and I saw the balls of light going through the woods. Kind of not flying, but they were kind of going like this, moving around as they were going, kind of around each other. Then I knew they were spirits. Because even without the balls of light, nobody, an athlete, couldn't run out of that place that fast, dressed in athletic clothes, let alone two women in her hoop skirts and a man dressed up like I said he was. Big, tall guy, heavy jacket, big hat, all that stuff, all in black. I drew them on the silly cartoon on the beginning title page. So I took some pictures, and I guess I'm going to load, I'm getting new at this, so I'm going to load some of the images in while I'm talking about them. Kind of random. Interesting about this, like, here's the images start. All right, the interesting thing about this graveyard is a lot of people wrote what people died of on some of these graves. There are a couple there of the Power sisters who aged like, God, they were like only 9 and 12, thereabouts, said they drowned in a stream nearby in April of like 1814. Must have been a tragedy. I can only imagine one fell in and the other went after, because after a winter thaw, which would be around April, and a good heavy rain, a creek that's only ankle deep becomes 12 feet deep, raging, deadly mess. So I imagine that was the tragedy behind that. And I don't know, I'll just let this cycle through a few times. And there was the one I told you, the guy that was killed by Indians. And a lot of babies, infants, young women, husband and wife buried next to each other, sometimes close, sometimes far apart in years. And there's one in the back that says 16-year-old boy killed by accidental discharge of a shotgun. That's like around 1810. And I didn't get back there, but there's quite a few Revolutionary War soldiers buried back in there. So, okay, enough on the photographs. Back to me. All right, I'm getting new at this video editing, so bear with me. Now, I went up there today and not only took the pictures I just showed, I also took some video. So I'm just going to let the video come in at this point that I took. And if you're bored, you want to watch, I walk around and take videos. If you're ghost hunting, I don't think you're going to find anything in any of these pictures or videos. You know, I want to make something about these things. I could walk up in there 100 times and only see something like this once. So you may be, but I just took the video just because, like I said, a picture's worth 1,000 words, and I got quite a few of them sometimes. So without further ado, here's the video I made just walking around there today, talking. I got to say one thing. I keep forgetting. When I'm doing this with my phone, it's right up by my face, and you can hear me breathing sometimes. I'm not out of breath. I just got the mic up next to my face, and sometimes. So I'll learn next time. I'm getting some new equipment, so. All right, here's the video. Like some of these gravestones, look at this. I think it's somebody's baby. That's how big it is. It's small. I'm thinking people didn't have the money or something to get a good stone. I don't generally come up here taking pictures, but I'm doing this story, so I thought maybe I would come up here today. Died 35. Yeah, we came in from over there. There's like a deer trail. My daughter and I cut through, and we saw the 3 people over there, and we crossed paths because we were going that way. One of them, woman in the yellow dress, stayed at the stone. And the other two came this way. And we intersected, cross paths. And that's when I said, "How you doing?" And they didn't seem to see me, hear me, didn't react in any way at all. They just went on their way. Susan M., wife of William H. Price, died April 10th, 1822. Hannah died 1841, age 23 years old. Yeah. There's graves all over here. They're just, the stones have fallen in. Sally M., wife of Isaac Cady, died 1848, age 44. And they were right around here, gathered around one of these graves. Seemed like it might have been this one. I'm not sure. These stones are from 1829, 1830, husband and wife. And I generally don't come out here taking pictures in the graveyard, but it's not far from my place, and I had some time and thought, why not? Betsy Booth died April 17th, 1838, age 42, and 4 days. (1832). Sylvester, son of Eben and Anna Smith, died Feb 15th, 1847, age 43 and 13 days. No age or sex can death defy. Think mortal what it is to die. Right. Well, you got stones like this. Stones under the dirt. Oh, here's an interesting one. Army man. Captain John S. Caddy, killed near Lake in Minnesota by Sioux Indians. June 11th, 1863, age 27 years old. Well, all right, that's it for the video. I'm going to take a few pictures and then go elsewhere. But this cemetery is disused, obviously, but the town maintains it. They come up here once in a while. A lot of people just walk around. There's no road coming in here. A bunch of Revolutionary War soldiers buried over in that corner. Civil War soldiers here and there towards the back. The oldest part's that way. And they filled in. Okay. All right. Before I move on to the second encounter story, I just wanted I took a picture. I mentioned earlier about a disused kind of wagon hearse, horse-drawn hearse path going through the woods up to this graveyard. And that's how most people walk up in there if they visit this place. I took a picture of it. Not today. This picture is from when the fall colors were out. Right now it's just about January here. But I thought it was cool because the way the leaves fell made like a golden path to green. And so here's that picture. Wanted to show that. And yeah, I thought it was cool. So just sharing this pic. That leads up to this graveyard. Took that, I think, around about October. All right, enough on that. All right, on to the second story. It takes place in Moravia again. But this takes place in Indian Mound Cemetery, which is a vast, old, interesting cemetery. A lot of really huge Victorian monuments. I guess if you're into gravestone architecture, this would be an interesting one to visit because there's a few noteworthy people buried up there. They have these massive monuments, but all right, that's not what this is about. I took a picture of that today, and I'll put that picture on and I'll talk through it. So here's the picture. All right, this happened about 5 years ago, and I was going to the salt mine where I worked, which is about 25 miles from here. And they're very strict on attendance. You have to be there 1 minute late, and you're just late. That's it. So I couldn't stop. But I was driving by this cemetery, not going very fast, and I saw a young woman come running down the dirt road. There's a chain up says cemetery closed. It wasn't there then, and she come running down that thing, just galloping, real gangly, awkward knees and arms and elbows all over the place, floppity flop. But was running for all she was worth. And I slowed down, almost stopped, and looked at her. And there was nobody else there, no cars, nobody at all. It was vacant. And she was very pale skinned, looked to be a young teenager, I'd say an adolescent. She had dark hair, almost black, but very white skin, very like sickly pale, like devoid of blood kind of pale. And she had on a dress that was out of period. I would say it was a dress. It went down to her knees, and it was beige with like brown print designs on it. And around her waist, she had, and this really stood out. She had like a sash around her waist of like coral red, brilliant red. And it was a really thick sash, almost like as big as a towel, like a bath towel, that big around, and hung too. So a pretty big sash wrapped around her waist, and it stood out almost unnaturally brilliant red. And so this is what this woman did. And I watched her. I slowed down and observed her because it was bizarre. There was nobody else there. And she's running down that hill, that little dirt road that goes up. The cemetery is up and beyond that, where it goes uphill on this picture. I'm really gangly. She looked like olive oil. Her haircut was short, very short. Cut kind of like made me think of Olive Oil, the cartoon Popeye's woman. Because she was about that thin, and that's about how her hair was that short. And this is where it got even weirder. She ran around, and she ran up down that hill and came around in front and stopped in front of that mausoleum with the red door in this picture. And she stopped right in front of that door facing it. And then she got down and put her hands and arms in front of her face. And all right, picture off because I'm going to demonstrate. She got down after she ran down and stopped right in front of that red door in that mausoleum, and then got down almost to the ground like this. Like she was cringing and cowering away from something. And she was terrified. And she almost was on the ground like this, cowering from something. I didn't see anything else. And at that point, I passed her, past the place, and I wanted to go back so bad and say, do you need help? And take her picture, because I did think she was a ghost at this point. Initially, I didn't. But when I got a look at her clothes and how pale she was, and most bizarre was her stopping in front of the mausoleum and then doing this in front of that door. Ugh. I wanted to go back, but like I said, I worked at a place, I worked at a salt mine, and I had to get to work, you know. I didn't have the time or I would have gone back and checked it out. I would have gotten a picture too this time, but you'll have to take my word on it. So those are two encounters I had with spirits. Story 23 in graveyards. And both of them had a couple things in common. Initially, they looked solid enough. I did not think that they were spirits. And they also had extremely white, pale skin. I mean, I think like, well, my ancestors, a lot of them came from Europe and Britain. And I'm thinking, well, they probably had really pale skin, but not that. It was unnatural. And that's it. And they had outdated, old-fashioned clothing on, very authentic. Oh, the girl, what did her shoes look like? I try to describe everything. I really didn't give her enough description. She was very thin, almost like ill thin, you know? Very thin, skin and bones. I mean, she didn't look like a skeleton or anything. She looked like an extremely thin, like young woman, like ill. Her shoes, it's where like I said, she had a knee-length beige dress with brown print, something on, little designs, print. And she didn't have any socks that I could see. It looks like she had on these really old sneakers, like the old low-bottom Pro Keds. And my speaker. Yeah, she had like on these, looked like really old, like Pro Ked low-bottom sneakers, white. But they look kind of dirty, honestly. And they had to, yeah, that's all. I think that's about as far as I dare go on that. But yeah, that's how she looked. So that's it. And I'm not the first person in this town to claim to have seen spirits in both of those graveyards. So a lot of people around here wouldn't think I'm nuts to tell these stories. Some might, but all right. Thank you. That's story 23.